have no idea where this will lead us, but I have a definite feeling it will be a place both wonderful and strange.
Hello, and welcome to the wonderful and strange Twin Peaks Logcast. I'm Kalil, and with me today is the hindquarters to my two-part horse costume.
You want to know the sound of that? That's the sound of the ticking clock that is running out of time for me to even try to deal with you. I deserve to be at the front. Thank you very much.
Who are you?
I am the Unplugged Professor, truly the head of the horse.
And today we are trespassing into episode 27, also entitled in some circles as The Path to the Black Lodge.
Oh, do we know that yet? We know that yet?
We do know that because that's the name of the episode.
Oh, no.
It's written by Harley Payton and Robert Engels.
Oh, excellent. I recognize those names.
That's great. They don't recognize yours.
Oh.
And it's directed by Stephen Gyllenhaal. Has not directed an episode before. You don't know him.
Okay.
He is known...
Because it took me a while to get things like James and Donna down. Jake Gyllenhaal.
No, not Jake Gyllenhaal. That is a person.
Oh.
But Stephen Gyllenhaal. Who's actually the father of Jake Gyllenhaal.
That.
As well as the father of Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I haven't heard of Maggie. I guess somewhere in the back of my head I've heard of Jake. Mm-hmm. So where do they exist inside my head? Because I forget that this is an older show sometimes. It looks so nice. I didn't realize that there's been legacies of people since then.
Mm-hmm. So Jake Gyllenhaal is an actor. He is known for a variety of roles. Got kind of his start early on with Donnie Darko. It's one of his bigger films.
Probably why.
He was in a film called Brokeback Mountain. And he is also famous for the film Nightcrawler.
Oh, wait, Nightcrawler had a film?
No, not a superhero Nightcrawler. It was like this guy photographing incidents at night.
Yeah.
However, there's a superhero connection. There's a superhero connection. Because Jake Gyllenhaal played Mysterio in Spider-Man Far From Home.
That is, he has a super connection indeed.
He does.
Hero is questionable.
He did indeed. And his sister Maggie, she had reappearing appearances in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
So she was also having some superhero shenanigans of her own on the side.
Okay.
She also was in some films of, I guess I hadn't known about them as much, but Secretary, Crazy Heart, and Frank.
I've heard Frank, but I don't think
I
I've
brought
heard
it
of
up
the
us watching
movie
it
Frank.
sometime. I showed you Frank sometime.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
it's gone.
You really don't remember
It's
anything. Okay, all right. And Stephen Gyllenhaal, the director of this episode, is their father. Stephen, as I call him, I'm first name basis. Mm-hmm. He has directed a little bit himself over the years. He's still directing to this day. Some of his films include Paris Trout.
Oh.
That's his most famous according to IMDb.
Okay.
So Be It, and Grassroots. So none of these films are ones I've personally heard of. I can't say if they're good or bad. Mm-hmm. A lot of his work has been made for TV movies or else TV episodes. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting to see the film genetics in the bloodline.
The film genetics. That is a way of saying it. Like, I believe in the nurturing of film rather than the nature of film. Thank you very much.
I think they work hand in hand. And I don't know about you, but I really enjoy the film genetics of this episode. I really quite enjoy this episode for a lot of its audio and visual choices that I don't know if they ultimately are credited to Stephen Gyllenhaal. I don't know how much a role he had in it, but I do find that out of the later season 2 episodes, this is among one of my favorites.
Oh, impressive.
Yeah, I know that Professor way back at the beginning, you've made comments about every episode getting better than the previous.
Yes.
During season 1, the last episode of season 1 was the best, and the first episode of season 1 was the lowest for you. And I know you don't like me saying it that way, but that is kind of how it is. Like, they got better every episode for you.
It has, just because, again, it continues to feed into mysteries. It continues to feed into ideas. Of course, there's points in which I joke and sometimes in which I am disappointed. There is that little dip, similar to the log lady, like half of her tattoo, in which, like, you're going up the mountain, but there's a small little dip on the way. But no, genuinely, that's usually how I see media. Twin Peaks isn't just composed of its individual elements as far as my brain is concerned. It is a very, very long story in which I will have to stay awake for multiple hours to consume it in its entirety.
Right. So you would say that every episode of season 2 has been better than every episode of season 1 just by virtue of it continuing the story.
Correct.
And the stuff with James and Evelyn that other people might go like, ugh, you're like, yeah, but then you're even more yeah for the stuff after it.
I mean, genuinely, I think I've been a big defender of Evelyn inside of this, and I am waiting for people to knock at the door with the torches and then ask for you to answer it.
Very much so. Very much. I can't say how much so, but yeah, it's going to happen. And I'm not that way. Maybe when I first watched the show, I might have been closer to that. I guess I really wasn't so critical at that time. But I do look at the episodes partly as individual elements, and I do think that the sum of the parts is greater. I do think that the show overall is better than any individual episode. I think it contributes to an overall idea that's really great.
Okay.
So for me personally, this is one of my higher up episodes toward the tail end of the series. And we'll get to a lot of those moments as we go through, so I won't spill my beans right now. But there's a lot to celebrate here that, again, I think if we're only looking at the episodes that Lynch is involved in, we miss these little nuggets, these little beauty nuggets, as I call them.
Beauty nuggets.
Beauty
Indeed.
nuggets.
That is one way to describe nuggets.
And I think that if all the beauty nuggets in the world are just to converge and form one human being in flesh and sinew and bone, I think they would form into the Log Lady.
Oh.
She is composed of beauty nuggets.
I don't know whether or not to agree to that statement. She is a lovely woman, but at the same time, I don't see anyone saying, oh, thank you, to the term beauty nuggets.
The Log Lady would be thankful because the Log Lady understands the deeper truths. And by that I mean David Lynch uses her like a puppet and puts his hand in places we do not mention in order to use her mouth as a vocal parasite area.
And to show off to the people of the Bravo network, was it?
No, it was actually just when they aired in Germany.
Oh, wait. So let me get this straight. When did we start getting the Log Lady then? Did she just appear out of the ether into the DVD boxes?
I assume yes. I assume that when it was officially released on DVD, that is probably when the Log Lady intros started to appear here.
Germany got it first.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There might have been potentially networks in the U.S. that were re-airing it afterward. I don't know that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So anyway, Log Lady intros, David Lynch. This is one of those intros that I think can be interpreted in sort of 3 different spheres.
Yeah.
So the first layer for me would be the Twin Perks. First, we have the Twin Peaks in-universe layer. So, if it's in the show itself, just looking at the show and the episode itself. And the whole intro here in the Log Lady, she talks about the puzzle maker, the mystery surrounding us with the clues around us, and we come to the wrong answer a lot of times. So the first obvious thing would be it's about the investigations, whether it's the crime investigations of the show or the lodges, investigating the lodges. Mm-hmm. That there is a sense of the puzzle maker being clever and the clues all around us just relates very simply to the mysteries of Twin Peaks in the show.
Yeah, the simple oversights that can come out of things that people might not be able to interpret at first.
And I mean, if we want to stretch it a little bit further but still keep it in universe, we have Eckert's puzzle box, right?
Yay.
Which itself is a mystery. The puzzle maker being clever, it might be Eckert. Do you think Eckert made the box?
I think that someone made the box, but whoever did really wanted to give them a other boxy mental thing? Really, that thing's still a mystery, even though we solved it.
Mm-hmm. The next layer would be the Twin Peaks meta. So we've talked about this a lot with the intros, that David Lynch wrote them after the fact, and a lot of times it could be David Lynch talking about Twin Peaks, using the Log Lady as a spokesperson.
Yeah.
And here we could look at people interpreting Twin Peaks in a mistaken way. That could be what he's talking about. Yeah. I think it's less of a criticism of the other writers or the show's direction, as some of the ones have kind of come across to us. And this one more almost calling out the fans a little bit. There are clues all around you, but the puzzle maker is clever, says David Lynch to himself, admiring his own reflection.
I think that it just gives credence to an idea of not straightforward answers, but at the same time, I will shame down that testament if any of it is true, because by the gods, we didn't hear about Owl Cave until last time.
Yeah.
The very important place with the symbols.
I think you could also work into the meta angle that she does refer to the world as a magical smokescreen. I don't think it's that far-fetched to interpret smoke screen to be like TV screen.
Smoke screen, yes, it could be a TV screen. And very much, it kind of reminisces on the wizard behind the curtain, if you will. Like, it's very show-offy, it's big, smokes everywhere. But that's all an illusion behind the man who's on his excite bike and watching the monitor.
If David Lynch likes anything, it's Wizard of Oz.
Oh, you don't say.
I do.
You don't say. And I was there, and you were there, and the listener was there when we saw a few instances.
And we're all there in the real world, which is the third possible layer I could articulate here from the intro.
Yeah.
That it might not be about Twin Peaks at all. It might not be about the process of watching it. It could be very much about our world, and that David Lynch is using this as an opportunity to get in a soapbox. I mean, previously he's recommended transcendental meditation almost. He's very clearly implied that, I think, in some of the intros. This one you could take as possibly that so many people in the world try to understand or dissect simple things and therefore miss the point. Like, one of the things that the Loglady intro ends on is how should we interpret the happy song of the meadowlark or the robust flavor of a wild strawberry?
It's only by feeling an emotion, and I think that there is a lot to say either by Twin Peaks or just life itself, in which feeling an emotion might be simply overlooked. It can just be an experience. It can just be experienced.
And I think that last point kind of brings us full circle, where you get situations like what Annie and Cooper are talking about in the diner, where it almost, again, it brings our real-world connection possibly into Twin Peaks itself, when they're talking about, hearing and seeing the other worlds, and sort of that talking about the Heisenberg quote.
The St. Petersburg.
Because the Heisenberg quote is, what we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. Well, maybe we shouldn't be, exposing nature to so much of that questioning. Just simply enjoy the taste of your strawberries.
Like David Lynch telling us that, but also later on that scene, certain sounds might happen in which might contest that idea.
Very much so.
But hey.
The strawberries are not what they seem.
The strawberries are not what they seem, and that's bad because they taste like owl.
And someone who's not going to be stirring any berries anytime soon, rest in peace, Rusty Tomasky.
Rusty Tomasky. We get a name. But prior to that, the credits already had given him a name, I think a much better name, what I believe to be his true Christian name, Heavy Metal Youth. Heavy Metal Youth. Was that in the last episode, or was it on this episode?
It was listed in the credits, I believe, in both, but I'm not going to fact check right now anyway.
That is fine, because I'm trying to figure out if, was Heavy Metal Roadie a separate credit? Because we get his little buddy talking.
That's his little buddy, as you called him.
Reminiscing.
Way to insult this diminutive man.
It's not bad to be a little buddy, okay?
Yeah, I mean, Paul Simon, he's short, and he's been doing fine for himself.
Everyone can be their own sense of stature, but from what I can understand, the Heavy Metal Youth is in a very, very tall pond. So I'm just judging by general size.
His shadow looms tall over our hearts and memories.
Yeah.
This pond-shaped man is played by Ted Raimi, who is the brother of director Sam Raimi, who you may know from a few early 2000s Spider-Man films.
And Evil Dead.
See, it's coming full circle with the Spider-Man and the superhero stuff from earlier with Gyllenhaal.
And Evil Dead.
And he also was the producer on the first Evil Dead, and I believe director on the second Evil Dead.
Yep, he was involved in the second Evil Dead.
They were also, both Raimi brothers were involved in the Xena series from the mid to late 90s.
Which both Evil Dead and the Xena series have Bruce Campbell in them.
Therefore, what's our conclusion?
Therefore, our conclusion is that there's going to be dark forces inside of the nature of the woods that we must be able to fend off with chainsaws for hands. By the end of this, I am predicting Cooper will have a chainsaw for a hand.
He's the one that's most likely to have a chainsaw for a hand?
He is the least likely, and hence why it is most important for him
He's
to have
the least likely?
Yes.
I think Doc Hayward is the least likely.
No, I'd take Doc Hayward with a chainsaw for a hand.
More
That's
likely
how he
than
operates.
Cooper?
Yeah, that's how he operates.
Yeah, okay, sure. All right.
That is why he cannot show Rosenfeld the bodies, because it gets too messy by the end.
That
so he
makes
has to
sense.
immediately cremate them.
Yeah. So yeah, poor Rusty Tomasky. They were going to go play a gig together in Knife River when they got a flat tire, and a guy came out of the woods wearing a, quote, weird suit.
By the way, it's noted as a weird suit. And yeah, you could just say it's in his usual suit, and it's weird for the location it is. But we also get an interesting suit later on that's horse.
It is indeed horse, yeah.
It is horse. So when he's described as Bigfoot walking through the woods, I'm wondering if A, it is fancy suit, B, if he has a Sasquatch suit, or C, if he was walking around with half of a horse suit.
Well, I mean, either way, if I saw someone wearing half a horse or a Sasquatch costume and they told me they had some brew, I'd go with them into the dark
You
woods.
don't drink, Kalil.
I would leave my friend behind on the highway in the darkness.
Kalil, like you have not even looked in the adjacent section of alcohol. Like I do not
I've
see.
looked at alcohol before.
Oh yeah? Do you have evidence? Name 3 beers that aren't most common.
There's types of beers. Dark beer, light beer, extra light beer.
Yep, there we go.
Okay, there's Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Oh sure.
Does that count? Is that too common?
I'm just gonna watch you drown.
'Kay,
Like I'm not helping you.
Heineken.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I know Heineken and Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Okay.
I also know. Okay, so I can't say like Miller, can I? I can't say like the obvious like.
Nope.
Okay, I'm gonna make up a name that's gonna like be so random that I think it's possibly the name of a beer somewhere. Dragon.
So
Dragon beer. Dragon brand beer.
So you've heard it here, folks. So if you really want to lead Kalil into a forest, all you need is Pabst Blue Ribbon, Heineken, or Dragon.
The popular brand of beer.
The very popular brands of beer.
Do you think that if I were to be killed by a Sasquatch-looking man, that Andy would cry over for me?
I mean, it didn't seem like Andy may have been crying for the man. It seemed like he was reacting to the other man crying as well. So perhaps he was crying for the roadie left behind.
Professor, would you cry for me and therefore let Andy cry for me?
No.
Professor?
No.
Why not?
Because you got led into the forest by dragon beer.
Okay, but then you wouldn't have anyone to do the podcast with.
Hello and welcome to the Twin Peaks Logcast, in which I, the Unplugged Professor, speak to myself alone for about an hour and a
Just
half.
inexplicably, one episode starts with just you and I never show up again.
Just me.
Listeners, if
Forever.
there's ever an episode uploaded and I'm not in there and it's not brought up, you need to contact someone. You need to find out what happened.
Someone being snakeeyedreams@gmail.com, because I will have access to that email, or to Twitter.
You won't even remember the
SnakeEyeDreams1,
password.
The numeral 1.
You won't remember the password for either of those things. You won't be able to get in.
Contact in vain.
Contact Hawk. Because Hawk seems to be contacting everyone else in this episode.
Yeah, he seems to be moving around, contacting a few individuals that need to come by. Also contacting the owls, or at least his knowledge of owls.
There's a big old owl book hanging out in the Great Northern Lobby.
Yeah.
It's not Hawk's. I thought first it was him, but then I saw someone else randomly reading it later.
Everyone's interested in owls, Kalil. I'm sorry that you're not.
Yeah, between the postcards at the Great Northern and the giant books, I guess it's just owl season.
Owls are not what they seem, because they are better. They are above what you predict them to be at. And it is just a mockery on you and your testament against the owls.
If you were doing like a tier list and you were looking at animals, what tier would owls be for you personally?
Clearly, it would be in the love tier, because as you say, somehow...
The love tier?
That is how...
So like an S rank.
It could be, but you say how owl can be redirected into the word love.
Yes.
So yeah, sure, why not?
They're like a B tier animal.
Kalil.
They got like funky looking eyes. I'll give them that. They poop out pellets out of their mouth. That's pretty whack. If I were to describe owls and their pellets with one word, it'd be whack.
Okay, then tell me, Kalil, what is an S-tier forest animal to you then?
S-tier
And
forest
no
animal?
Googling.
I would say the pygmy marmoset.
And that is why I have the better taste.
Or the eye. The eye. I'm going to count the eye. Those things are wicked. You ever seen those things' fingers?
I'm thinking of an eye, and I'm thinking of the little monkey from Super Monkey Ball, who is the main character.
It's kind of like that, but imagine it was like crossbred with a demon.
So eye from Super Monkey Ball.
Exactly. You understand. So, I know that Hawk was calling people.
Yeah, he was contacting them via the phone,
Yeah.
he was actually coming by to greet them physically, so it seems that his hands were full on 2 full contacts.
Cooper was the one notably to call Shelley, though.
Well, I told you before, Shelley is the spade, like spade for a spade. A spade is a spade.
They can dig
the
themselves
king
a hole
spade
together.
And the queen spade.
Very
hopefully.
truthfully. Then Cooper takes the 3 girls into the somewhat lighted corner of a very, very dark room.
It seems that it's more walled. It looks like the window in the back is a little bit higher. So maybe he's just hoping, he doesn't know about Wyndham Earl with the bonsai tree, but maybe he's just hoping Wyndham Earl's like not at any windows and believes that the window that's higher than his usual stature will dissuade him from any sort of listening ins from brick walls or doors. This place has been known for having people lean into doors and listen in, after all.
I understand, but I still gotta make fun of the lighting of it.
It is a nice dark lighting. It's setting the mood, setting the tone. It is this getting ready for the criminal business situation.
The criminal business.
The criminal business.
I feel like this is, for me, the weakest scene of the episode, and a very strong episode at that. And again, overall, it's good, but this particular scene didn't really communicate anything new we didn't already know. Sure, you could argue that it, added some atmosphere to it, but I still feel like we already knew the threat level was alpha. We already knew it couldn't get much worse than this. Putting them in a very, very, very dark room, it just felt a little weird to me, a little off.
It's the tone of communication with characters. You could just have, like, Truman and Cooper just, like, stand off to the side. It's like, yep, I made sure to contact everyone, that everyone say okay. But this sets the mood and tone for it being severe, being like, okay, listen, you are going to contact us morning and night. It has to be settled this way. Mm-hmm. This is dangerous. And having that mood set with the characters and tone is better than a passing comment in any day in my book. Not only that, but just sort of the camera panning was a lot of fun with them. And just seeing certain angles of faces. I know that we were talking about like a certain angle of face that Bobby saw in Shelley's face, but we didn't really get to see that angle until now.
Yeah, sure. That is perfectly fine. The lighting is still funny. I digress. Cooper, after finishing up with that conversation, he traverses over to discuss with Major Briggs, who is a little worn for the wear. Major Briggs has not been sleeping too many winks after reading the Project Blue Book files, the secret dossier files on a certain Wyndham Earl.
It's okay. He's got the strength and charisma and constitution of the great man known as Cappy, a well-fond and remembered Twin Peaks individual and member of potentially the Bookhouse Boys or something like that. I don't know. He's wearing a leather jacket inside of a police station, so...
Cappy, who knows?
Cappy is on everyone's side, which also makes him the deadliest foe.
Well, he is going to dig up everything he can find about the Dugpas. So I trust him. Obviously, if Sheriff Truman and, Agent Cooper trust him. He's a man of outstanding character.
Yep, he has a character, and his name is Cappy.
So we learn a few things about Wyndham Earl here. We learn about his past with the Project Blue Book operation, that he was among the best and brightest of them all, but he became noticeably very destructive and obsessed and secretive and possessive of his assignments once they started to turn their attention away from space to instead the woods of Twin Peaks. There's this video footage that Major Briggs then unearths. I'm not really sure who's taking this video footage. Mm-hmm. It's very close to Wyndham Earl's face.
Yep.
And it's Wyndham Earl talking a bit about the Dugpas. Professor, what did you make of this at-home, America's Funniest Home Video certified video recording?
Well, for one, it was the sort of angle of the camera. You could either say that it was like something hidden off to the side. It could have been someone's badge. Or it could have just been a close little camera in which he just paid a little mind to, because he was on a great conspiracy trip. Though he is like frustrated at people potentially looking at him insane, he's not exactly speaking in someone who is completely level-minded in his discoveries of these beings that he constantly refers to as evil, these Dugpas, if you will. And I gotta say, like, having a very strange mystical or magical element and having a name to a group with that, it just is a lot of fun. That is some straight dopamine straight into my arm. Thank you very much.
Evil appears to be the dopamine of choice for these Dugpas, though. Evil, quote, for the sake of evil. Wyndham Earl says that, quote, this ardent purity allows them to access a secret place where the cultivation of evil proceeds in exponential fashion.
Now, as far as this goes, like, Wyndham Earl himself could be a very biased source, especially through his discoveries. Not only it could be Wyndham Earl at that stage, but it also could be generally what he perceives as evil. I'm not fully convinced on the evil end at this moment. I don't think that the morality will be that heavy-handed on these beings, especially with what we have heard about the Black Lodge thus far. I'm not fully convinced yet.
It does relate also a little bit to your previous musings about White Lodge being purity, Black Lodge being impurity, in the sense of purity of thought was something we talked about prior. Because this place, this area with the cultivation of evil proceeds in exponential fashion, supposedly this tangible place can be utilized, and it is called by many names, but chief among them is the Black Lodge. So it appears that whatever evil means, whatever possibly that term means to Wyndham Earl in that moment from that footage, he does believe that there's a sort of purity of intent, and that's how you get there. You get there by having pure intent, evil for evil's sake, and then you're able to harness the Black Lodge. If we go with our previous talking points that the White Lodge is purity of thought, and the Black Lodge is more the confused or muddled or contradicting thought, there's a little bit of a weird back and forth kind of going on here about where we're settling with the idea of purity. What does pure evil mean? Like, evil itself is such a loaded term.
Yes.
What is pure evil? Right? Obviously, you've heard that phrase a lot from like cartoon villains. But if we take that thought as a seriousness, how would you distill chaos and corruption into a form that's pure?
I don't think that... Can chaos be pure? It seems that chaos is in all sorts of levels of intensity.
Well,
like, I don't think that there can be something that can be pure but also fluctuates, you know?
Well, Wyndham Earle previously had criticized or mocked the White Lodge for how people would unthinkingly do good.
Yeah.
Well, my first thought would be that pure evil is someone who does evil for evil's sake without thinking about it. That it's someone who every waking moment they choose to do evil, right? They choose hatred.
What shall I do today? Shall I burn the orphanage or implant bombs in the dogs?
But if that's the case, then wouldn't he mock them for unthinkingly always doing the same thing without, again, having their own reasons? Another jumping point would be that someone who's pure evil is someone who always, I guess, like, is self-serving and always does what's going to benefit themselves. But then is that really pure when every single time you think of an action, you need to weigh out the cost benefit to yourself? I feel like that's not a very quick, impulsive way of thinking. So the whole idea just feels a little bit confused. But then again, so does Wyndham Earle. The dude seems like he's breaking out sweats right now.
Yep, he is.
Not the article of clothing, the article of liquid from Face.
That is one way to describe him. Absolutely. I'm keeping an eye on him, and I've kept certainly an eye on his shenanigans throughout this episode.
Speaking of which, Wyndham Earle is keeping an ear on everything through the bonsai tree, and I really enjoy the moment where he's sort of sing-songing, I know something they don't know, I know something Dale only suspects. Project Blue Book. Little men, peewits loaded with optimism. They were a deterrent so slight it was practically encouragement. Yet I would like to ask Major Briggs a question or three. I really enjoy the sort of sing-songy attitude he has. And again, that Project Blue Books did such a bad job keeping out corrupt individuals and did such a bad job, keeping morals in check within their own ranks that someone like Wyndham Earle could go in, turn this southward so quick, and it took him quite a while. Like, it sounds like it took him 2 years to kick the guy out. We don't exactly know how much time passed between they started researching Twin Peaks and Wyndham Earle was kicked out, but it seems like it took it to the point of him being violent to actually do something about it. When he was just going crazy and rambling and using their resources to research things that probably shouldn't have been researched, everyone just kind of seemed to allow it up until a certain point.
I mean, we were looking for all sorts of places and sounds whenever it came to Project Blue Book, and there was all sorts of possibilities. I imagine that keeping him around was important because he probably has shown his intelligence in other fields. You don't just fire a man over potentially one quote-unquote mistake. You do it until someone gets punched in the face. Then that might be the tipping point. Can we also appreciate, like, as he's like talking about this, how does he have this much equipment in his little cabin in the middle of the woods, and where is he getting the electricity for it? Because he's got like a full-on computer display all over the place. It looks like he's going to hack the world.
Electricity works in strange ways in Twin Peaks.
And you know what also works in strange ways?
What?
Electronics, because if you look closer at the screen, it shows an image of two individuals standing next to each other, a large one and a very small one. And when Earl seems very excited in the middle of that speech you just said, he slams a button on the computer, and it gets closer and closer and closer to the left side chest of what I assume to be the larger figure. And what's on the left side chest of figures like that?
Lungs?
I think deeper.
Deeper?
Yep. Dig into this man.
Blood vessels?
I want you to dig into this man like Doc Hayward does with his chainsaw arm.
I suppose if I were to look for the source of the universe's power,
Yes.
i.e. love,
Yes.
that pumps out like blood
Yes.
from the small intestine.
Yes. No. I thought you had it. I was following along with you.
Oh, no.
Yes, it's the heart. I believe that it was getting close to the heart, and whether or not it is an oversight on his part, or if it is somewhat of a, let's call, a fascination on his end, maybe a curiosity, or maybe just a hint to the audience. Maybe there's something to do with the heart, to the love of the universe, and what we need to find in this map.
Wyndham Earl likes to cut people open, though, and stab them in the heart. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, to be fair.
Absolutely. Leo especially has seen this, and that is why he takes a little device off the counter. But around that point, we do get a little bit more on those Dugpas, don't we?
I want to talk about the Dugpas, but just very quickly, I do want to establish, I think, a pretty important event that happens here.
Yeah.
Is that Wyndham Earl knocks off all the pieces of the chessboard.
Why? Like,
He's pure chaos. I don't know what pure chaos means, but it's pure chaos.
Wyndham Earl has been the one not playing by the rules, and yet he's the one who criticizes everyone else on not playing by the rules. Isn't that funny, Kalil?
I can't help but, and again, maybe my feelings will change over time, but for quite a while now, even before our rewatch, I've felt a little bit disappointed by the whole chess angle of this show. And it feels to me like this was the ultimate admitting of like, yeah, we don't know what we're doing with this either, guys.
I mean, it can be that. That may very well be the case, but I still lean on the fact that Wyndham Earl definitely says things and then does another thing, which I think is important for the character.
My gut impulse would be that this was a planned plot line that they realized they didn't have enough time for. The show was only going to have a few episodes left. So I think they scrapped the whole entire chessboard idea because they realized they wouldn't have time to play out this whole chess game and therefore just removed it. But in doing so, kind of made the whole thing seem a little pointless. I think you can retroactively force in your brain a logic behind it that it was all planned from the start to show how finicky and mindless this man is. And all the stuff that, you know, Dale Cooper was saying about his mind being like a diamond and all that sort of stuff, that was all red herring. Because obviously it all changed later anyway. He went so mad that this is just how he's doing things now.
Well, you see, Kalil, the big thing about that is that the diamond is hard, but it is not tough. It is not durable. In fact, it's pretty, like, only really okay for the sake of durability. So, like, it can be easy to break a diamond, actually. It just remains hard, though. It's actually, it is vulnerable. So, as Wyndham Earl is. So, it either was just a very bad metaphor, very stereotyped metaphor, or truly it was the answer on Wyndham Earl and his stability.
Speaking of questionable thought processes, Wyndham Earl says to Leo that he would have appreciated the Dugpas. He says that they are like the Kali worshippers in India, which at that point Wyndham Earl says that they were a bunch of zanies, blood for breakfast, blood for lunch. I know that you and I both did some separate researches a little bit on the Kali worshippers and sort of our findings.
Yeah.
Because neither of us, admittedly, know much at all about this. We're not surrounded by a lot of culture from India or a lot of Hindu studies. So this is not something that we're super, super familiar with. We have done the basic minimum amount of Googling.
We have done light means research, but still from what we ended up finding was very fascinating. Just so you know, we do record the podcast fairly short in time length from like watching the episodes, and just to try to keep it as fresh as possible.
So the pork is fresh off the oven for you.
Sure, why not? But as far as Kali goes, it's very fascinating, at least from what I ended up finding myself. And mind you, there's going to likely be a lot of mispronunciation. I'm going to do my best from what I do see and what I handle with, but please be sure to check out the pronunciations on your own if you get the chance. Research into it, because this is actually a lot of fun. But yeah, anyway, Kali is a goddess that seems to be the most powerful form of Shakti. And what Shakti is noted as is a primordial cosmic energy and represents the dynamic forces that are thought or move throughout the universe. Now, Kalil, does that sound familiar at all?
No.
No, not at all? There's no cosmic forces in Twin Peaks or anything like that?
Nope.
Nope, good, because glad that I put out a red herring out there.
Yep.
But no, she's noted as being a goddess of time, creation, destruction, and power. And I think that is very important because, as noted inside of a book, or the description of a book more so, by Elizabeth U. Harding, goes through Kali, the black goddess of Dakshineswar. Most religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, do not really
Judaism
Do not acknowledge the feminine power of God. Nevertheless, the mysterious feminine powers of God strikes a special chord in most people's hearts. The concept of mother goddess in the West, the meek, ever-loving, patiently suffering female, is very different than the image of Kali in Hindu pantheon. And like I mentioned before, these very heavy notes of like time, creation, destruction, and power. She's known in her earliest appearances for the destroyer of evil forces, a destroyer of evil itself. It's a very much more stronger interpretation as opposed to, like Annie says later on how there's just more of a meek appearance for her and her within her own faith that can be juxtaposed by Hindu faith within like something like the goddesses there. So I'm wondering if it's just the portrayed sense of power, destruction, and creation that might make contradiction into that. Not to mention that there is the Black Goddess, in which, hey, Black Lodge, ba-ba-da-ba-da. But with all of these elements of this goddess, and with Wyndham Earl being inconsistent with how he's playing chess and how he says everyone else is cheating, and how he keeps saying evil, 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 despite our information that we've gotten so far with the Black Lodge, I'm wondering if not only how reliable Wyndham Earl is in his interpretations, but maybe there's also a way that he speaks backwards in a more open, like, defining tone, as opposed towards the backward-speaking man that we've found in the Man from Another Place.
Interesting thoughts. One quick note on that as well is that she is known as a black goddess, mostly because of the coloration. Like, this is a goddess that is depicted oftentimes as a woman of color with very, very dark skin. So I think that also pulls into the name, that when we say a black goddess, that may not necessarily have the moral effect that we hear in like black and white ideas in our traditions and our cultures we're more familiar with.
Yeah, we don't at the same time know how much, like, how it would be interpreted in like things like color theory or how the color interprets, like, just because this is a very early religion, how much was interpreted or how much was kept literal, or the intention of it is almost lost through time, and only by perspective of now can we just predict.
Right, because I think that the Judeo-Christian heritage that we're more familiar with, the idea of black being associated with evil, night being associated with evil, is very common. And whereas I think that, especially a lot of different Eastern religions, I mostly think of like Taoism, right? Where you have the yin-yang symbol, the black and white. It's more about a sense of balance and more of a sense of companionship rather than opposition. So given there's a whole pantheon of Hindu gods and they have their connections to each other, I don't think necessarily black goddess has the same sort of connotations as black tends to have moral connotations in Judeo-Christian mythological figures. One thing I'll say then also from my research, so I found things that are a little bit different from yours, Professor. And I was looking at this blog that's from an Australian blog. It's called Kashgar. And they have a paragraph here that talks about some of the worshippers from the past. So quoting this blog here, Kali's worship was not always so benign. From the 14th century to the 19th century, a cult group called, I'm gonna hope I'm pronouncing this right. It's spelled Thuggee. I'm gonna say Thogi. I'm not sure. From the Hindu word to deceive, was operating at will in India. A hereditary sect, Thogi membership was passed from father to son, although outsiders, particularly criminals, could be recruited if they were found worthy, or might end up as victim if they're not found worthy. During its peak, the group is believed to have had thousands of followers, and during the 600 years of its operation, its members were estimated to have killed anywhere between 500,000 and 2 million people. Thuggees proudly trace their origin to the Battle of Kali against Raktabija, and consider themselves to be her children, created from her sweat. Pandering to the fiercest aspects of Kali and her requirement for death, destruction, and human sacrifice, the Thuggee believed that they were doing Kali's sacred work. Although it should be noted that they had no hesitation in also robbing their victims too. The British finally wiped out the Thuggees in the mid-19th century, and the cult of religious stranglers ceased to exist except in myth and folklore. It's the same group that I was running into in my searches were featured in like Indiana Jones movies as like sort of these minor bad guys in the background.
Yeah, because, you know, like whenever we're thinking about like context of like good guys and bad guys, like 80s and 90s films are the perfect place to see who is good and bad.
Harrison Ford is my moral arbiter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I hope he didn't do anything too bad.
If go ahead and watch the Indiana Jones movies again, like if you're going to be taking that perspective.
I haven't seen him in actual years. Don't, please. I'm sorry. But no, going back to what I was saying here, it looks like the Kali worshippers, whether fairly or unfairly, got a certain perspective painted onto them because of a cult that formed around Kali. That not all Kali worshippers are like that, obviously, but that there were a pretty pronounced group that were outright murdering people and enjoyed death and destruction as a way of worshiping their goddess.
Okay.
So I think that very much fits what it seems like he's talking about, the Dugpas.
Okay.
Evil for evil's sake. A group of people who, in their cult worship of their goddess, believe that the act of killing and the act of violence was a religious service. You know, the same way that prayer is, or offering to a temple. They believe that the act of spilling blood of other random people is an act of devotion. That sounds pretty much like a Dugpa to me.
I don't know if it's going to be sounding necessarily like a Dugpa, or what sort of event Dugpas had that Wyndham Earl did end up uncovering them. In fact, like, the Dugpas are completely kind of in the mystery sect of at least the general area of Twin Peaks, or the general area of Project Blue Book, at least by the narrative's presence.
Yeah, we haven't really had a clarity about whether the Dugpas are in this area or not, but considering that the research that had been done was in Project Blue Book was at Twin Peaks, that they were looking at the forests of Twin Peaks, I assume we're linking the Dugpas to this area.
Unless, like, there's a secret with Donna, and it turns out that, oh no, the place that where she may have or may not have been born was the place of the Dugpas, and it's not that, like, potentially she doesn't have, like, an uncertain dad. The dad was all the Dugpas.
We're going to get to Donna later, but just for clarity's sake, where was she actually born according to a birth certificate?
Apparently, like, I think it was like Otis or Ollie County. It was something starting with an O, and it was in West Virginia. All of it was weirdly, like, crossed out on the birth certificate, and
Strange.
I thought that was hilarious. I think it's also strange that Donna is getting mail from California as well. There's just a lot of travel considering Donna and her residency.
Well, Shelley might be traveling out of this life.
Oh, no.
And Leo, Wyndham Earl asks, Leo, would you mourn if Shelley dies? I doubt you would, Leo. But Leo's like, no. Shelley, no. Love Shelley. And he pulls out the object he had secretly earlier possessed.
Yeah, and that's when Wyndham Earl kind of looks at him in, like, horrified eyes. He's like, no, please, Leo, I beg you. As, like, Leo is ready to get back after the man who has tortured him countless times. And he presses the button, and it shocks him in his neck. And it's horrifying, because not only is it seems that there is a simplicity to Leo's mind after, like, coming out of his coma, coming to Wyndham Earl. There's definitely bits shattered, but it looks like there's a little bit of a difference between Goodbye Wife and Love Shelley in this instance. In fact, two versions of words in which one is more endearing and features name, and the other one is saying goodbye and just trying to leave in one way or another with a position and title. It's a good use of rhyme in actions using a character, and I love this scene to death.
Also, to Wyndham Earl's defense,
no,
think of how little Leo Johnson was developing and growing and recovering while under the Briggs household. But now that he's with Wyndham Earl, dude, he's making leaps and strides. Not only is he, like, walking around, he's, like, making things with, like, hand tools or whatever. He's also able to, like, form a little more coherent thought, a little more coherent statements, and he's morally improving too. He's gone from being this murderous rampage man to actually showing genuine affection. I think Wyndham Earl's kind of teaching him how to be a better person.
I think that this is fiction, and I don't think anyone should be treated the way that Leo has, because that is horrifying.
Leo should probably be in jail.
Leo
forever.
should be in jail forever for all his actions and just be tried for those said actions.
I'm not a fan of cruel and unusual punishment, just to clarify. To clarify between the jokes
there
here.
We go.
I do not agree with anything like that.
So, Leo Johnson is in a place now, and he is cemented his further entrapment as he desperately continues to press the button as he fidgets on the floor, and Wyndham Earl laughs in the background.
We're all love's fools, more or less, but you will soon learn, as I have, the value of hate. Then he unshackles this big old lucky thingy.
Yeah.
Big old. It feels like it's like a prop from the movie Saw.
It looks like it could potentially be like all sorts of styles of shackles, maybe for the feet, maybe for the hands. But regardless, it seems that there's going to be chains happening very, very soon.
Mm-hmm. But happening even sooner than that is Major Briggs taking a walk in the woods.
I mean, it might be either much sooner or in the future or around the same time. I wouldn't say that. It's hard with that timeline.
Yes, it is. But Major Briggs, trying to clear his mind, goes out in the woods and he is whistling. He touches a tree. Touches
his ear, like be
touches his neck. Then he turns and he hears Home on the Range being hummed in the background. And what should he see but the natural sight of a horse in its natural habitat? The way that many of us, when we go walking, see horses of this nature.
Kalil?
Yes.
Horses don't have eyebrows like that.
And as soon as Major Briggs is thinking that exact thought, he hears, "Hello, Wilbur!"
In like a Mr. Ed voice.
And the gun comes out of the horse.
Oh,
if you've ever had a horse pull a gun on you before, you know it's one of the scariest things that could possibly happen to you.
Because it's coming out of the chest, not the hoof.
Yes. Terrifying.
And he gets shot by a tranquilizer dart.
At which point, Wyndham Earl is comfortable enough that his opponent has been felled, that Wyndham Earl lets out yet another one of those laughs as he removes the horse head, revealing that he indeed had been the front of the horse, and that his friend, Leo the Lion, had been relegated to the buttocks.
Yep, and he says a comment towards Leo that is just more insult to injury to insult again.
Leo's found his calling.
And leads him back. Well, carries. How do they get Major Briggs with Leo in the butt of the horse, or do they walk in the two halves?
I'd like to believe that they get out of the costume and Leo carries him, but also maybe they just have him on the back of the horse. Yeah,
that would tear the material, wouldn't it? I don't think. Forgive me.
Major Briggs is a larger man.
He is, and I don't know if that could even hold me or you or half of us.
I mean,
together.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I understand what you mean. It is a strange thing. I also really enjoy, before this scene leaves, we get Wyndham Earl's laughing, and then it trails into black, but the laughter is still going as the black screen is on there, before eventually the laugh cuts a few maybe 2 seconds into the black screen.
Yep.
I like that the laugh goes past the video footage, and then is cut in the black screen. I don't know, something about that really works for me.
I'm glad that works out for you.
You know what's not working out for Major Briggs?
What would that be?
Being tied in front of a target.
Or shackled. I couldn't see the ropes, really.
I remember seeing ropes.
Well, good for you.
Yep, and I remember seeing arrows. As Wyndham Earl loaded arrows into his arrow launcher. That's the technical name for what he had. Nope, it's an arrow launcher. Technically, they're bolts then, not arrows, right?
Yeah.
Crossbows shoot bolts.
Yeah, I believe so.
I played Final Fantasy 12, and that's what they called the ammunition when I used a crossbow.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
You did good.
Thanks. So he asked some questions, right? We previously had heard that he had a question or three for Major Briggs, and we get those questions. When did you first see the symbol at Owl Cave? And, Major Briggs...
I'm not at liberty to divulge that information.
And then he says, what does the cave painting mean?
I'm not at liberty to divulge that information.
I love the military mind. He did not say it that dramatically, but he did love the military mind. At which point he was like, all right, let's just see if this guy is going to say anything. What is the capital of North Carolina?
I am at liberty to divulge this information.
What is it?
Rowley.
Fat lot of good, that'll do me. Which, I like Wyndham Earl's sense of humor, if whatever you do it with a smile. Whatever job you have in life, have fun with it.
Every day, give yourself a present.
Every day, give yourself a horse. Wyndham Earl stabs Briggs with a syringe very, very forcefully. To the extent that I'm surprised the needle doesn't, break in his flesh. That was a violent stabbing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he salutes him. Again, love the military mind. Gotta love it.
Got to love it.
And then ensues from that one of my favorite moments personally from the series. Garland, what do you fear most in the world?
The possibility that love is not enough.
Oh, Garland, please, I shall weep. I really enjoy that. What do you think Major Briggs means when he says that the possibility that love is not enough is what he fears the most?
You see, between the heart point inside of this episode, as well as just love being something of the universe, and just love being a theme, an invitation to love. I miss
Invitation to Love.
I I'm sure you do. And I gotta say, no, love is going to probably play a very, very important role in the series itself. So I think that it's just implying that love can be a powerful force that can overcome great qualms in our present.
And what would it mean if it's not enough?
And if it's not enough, that means that we might have to do more than love. And that can lead to very, very probably messy situations.
Okay. What do you think would be the next thing past love?
Um,
If love is not enough, what's the next thing we use?
Chainsaws for arms.
Okay, we'll have to see what happens. That's what he's so afraid of.
Yes.
He once saw Doc Hayward deliver a baby with his chainsaw hands, and he was like, "I can't let that happen again."
And I almost think to myself, there might be an overwhelming force in Twin Peaks at this moment because I think it might be parallel or not involved with love. We have multiple scenes where people's hands are shaking, and those three most notable ones are when a woman is eating a pie nearby Shelley and Bobby as they're having a discussion, and her hand shakes uncontrollably. When Cooper opens up some blinds looking out into the light, while also reminiscing about Annie, and his hands begin to shake, and Pete Martell looking at Audrey as well as Jack, when they're about to engage with one another in a test flight of their own. And it is in these three cases where I can see a form of purity or a form of love. Whether or not, like, the woman eating the pie has been noted for being a very pure thing, something very powerful, as seen from the log lady. So it might be from the pie itself. It might be from the conversation had behind her with, like, Shelley and Bobby being like, look, what happened before, I'm realizing I've been kind of a dick. And there's also Cooper feeling romance in the air and just feeling love and fullness inside of his heart that we're seeing him really engage and be weirdly more of himself with. And when he opens up the light, big pie is pure, light is pure, his hand begins to shake almost at the sight of it, like that white light. And then lastly, Pete Martell looking out towards these lovers. And that love happening. Perhaps that is love coursing through the air, and maybe also a warning for what is to come. And hopefully that power, this overwhelming shaking power of love for pie, light, and sex is going to be enough for what comes to Twin Peaks next.
Yeah, I really enjoy that recurring element, the mystery of that shaking. I came to a similar conclusion also while rewatching this, where I was reminded of less about love specifically and more the feeling of joy. But love, I think, is works the same way here. There's this sort of positive emotion that these three characters are feeling. That's a very simple, straightforward, pure emotion that is very powerful and overwhelming.
Yeah.
That for Cooper might be clouding his judgment. For the lady might be maybe making her forget about the rest of her life because that pie's in front of her.
That is pie.
And Pete is overcome with emotion that he is wiping away the tears in his eyes at the sight of whatever he is witnessing as he stares at the plane. So I do think that there's some credence to that idea that whether it's love or joy, that intense positive feeling is awakening. And I can't remember if it's the exact same hand that's shaking on all three of them, because I know that the lady at the diner, it was her left hand that was shaking.
Oh, wasn't it her right hand or was it her left hand? I can't recall. Yeah. We'll go with it.
Clearly, I don't remember. We don't remember together.
It was a hand on a side, and yes.
Yes, it was one of the side hands. I agree. I agree. Speaking of side hands, Wyndham Earle asks Major Briggs how much his side hand weighs. And by side hand, I, of course, mean wife. And Major Briggs responds,
115.
And Wyndham Earle says, good for her, and does this sort of hourglassy thing.
It's not just an hourglass. He makes that hourglass motion, but at the end, he, like, wiggles his fingers. And just that little bit, again, kudos to just almost the physical acting of Wyndham Earle chewing up scenery. It's hard not to just, like, look at this and be like, you're going to stick out in my memory of Twin Peaks, my man.
Is that a good thing?
I think it's a good thing.
Good. Well, sticking into Major Briggs is that truth serum. We can presume is a truth serum, because at this point he is now revealing the truth of everything. He is revealing now his dreams, the memories he has with his time with what might have been the White Lodge, how he recognized the sign, the light, the guardian. And when Major Briggs is asked, what does the sign mean? What do the signs mean? he says cryptically,
"There is time that Saturn and Jupiter will meet. They will receive you." Something like that.
And then Briggs starts talking in what the subtitles call speaking gibberish.
And I gotta say, it doesn't seem like gibberish, because guess what? We have someone who speaks backwards. And Nemok, what does Nemok backwards sound like?
Reebok? Like the shoe company?
No. Say Nemok backwards.
Kameen.
Yep, there we go. So, why don't we just do a little bit of movie magic here and just... like that, manage out a few sounds for you audience members. So clearly it sounds like that he has to go to a union, or they're coming to a union. Either like there's going to be a uniting of some sort, or hey, perhaps they need to go visit their local credit union.
So coming is the only word that's like really clear.
Coming is the clearest word, and that's the most enunciated by Briggs as well.
Yes. So I'm reading up on the Twin Peaks wiki, the premier source of information. Twin Peaks wiki is actually really good. They've generally had a lot of information there.
No, that's great and all. I'm just afraid if this is the right answer and I'm the wrong one.
I mean, it could be that he's going to coming to a union.
Yep, there's going to be something uniting.
It could be reverse speak for that gum you like is coming back in style. Hypothetically, one is more relevant than the other to Twin Peaks, but admittedly, the union one is just as possible because it is gibberish, right?
I mean, again, like it seems that there's going to be aligning planets that will be the time in which things will be easier with the Black Lodge, if you will, for things to sort of come to fruition. So maybe it is a cryptic warning. Maybe it is more gum. Either way, it is fun reverse speech, and it sounds like there's at least some words inside there. Or somehow Major Briggs kind of like hit the nail right on the coffin and managed to get coming out very clearly, weirdly enough.
Yeah, I don't know how much it helps, but GlastonburyGrove.net, they have the scripts. I don't know how official they are, but they have scripts for the Twin Peaks episodes. And the way that they write it in the script form here is tat, mug, oi, ekiel, si, nemok, cab, ni, eliots, which again would be that gum you like is coming back in style.
Perhaps there's a union that happens between saliva and gum that we must consider, in which, what is style if not, probably there might be gum coming back in style.
I think it's a stretch. I don't think it's communicated very clearly. Like, I think coming is the only word that, like, you can really grasp onto. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how official that script is.
Yeah.
That might be very interpretive in itself.
I still enjoy the fact that there is potentially reverse speech right around here.
Yeah.
And that is just fun.
And next we get to a section that I titled in my notes as Screaming.
Screaming?
Screaming.
Screaming.
Because as Leo Johnson is screaming, Windemerle is downloading the Matrix on his Windows 93. Briggs is shaken, losing it clearly, and Windemerle's singing, doing some sort of arty computer stuff, like he opened up Paint, and he's moving things around, he's doing some JPEG rotations.
Yeah.
And he does a little...
Yep.
Little TikTok.
Little TikTok. I love it.
The kids love it. These teenagers and their TikToks. And Windemerle then overlays the cave painting on top of the Twin Peaks area map, and he lets out a good old guffaw, a moist chuckle.
A moist chuckle. That's the phrasing we're going to go with. What does that sound? That's why I think of a moist chuckle.
That's exactly what he did. So what did you think overall of his Windows 93 Paint adventures?
Clearly moist.
Yeah?
Yeah, the word is moist, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
No, jokes aside, it's wild, it's a ride, and just looking at the map, it's given me some extra ideas on what to expect. In fact, we do end up later on seeing the circle of trees inside of Twin Peaks at a certain location.
All in due time.
That is pretty neat, my dude.
Nifty.
Nifty in duty.
But all these things are new to us. They are about as new to us as the world seems to be to a certain Annie Blackburn.
Oh.
We have a conversation between Truman and Cooper at the sheriff's station You mentioned this earlier. This is the moment where Cooper's hand is shaking because he is talking about Annie Blackburn and his feelings toward her. This is around the time...
And later looks into the light. That's important.
And the way he looks into the light, yes. Right now, as we're talking, by the way, there's a beam of light shooting directly at the professor's eyes from curtains we have behind us. The blinds.
I'm ducking around in order to not feel pain.
He is Dougieing around to avoid the light. And at this time, Cooper is talking about his feelings with Annie to Truman. And he says, I proceed as usual, my mind clear and focused. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I see her face and hear her voice. Naturally, I try to reorient myself, but the image remains. Sometimes I actually feel dizzy. Well, my symptoms might suggest the onset of malaria, but I never felt happier in my life. And Truman says that, that's how a man's supposed to feel when he's in love. He says that he sounds lucky. Now, Truman obviously has had some experiences with love recently and the aftermath of love.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, according to the American Heart and Lung Association, approximately 20% of relationships end in turning into a drawer knob. So Truman truly has a relatable situation. And I'm sorry, dear listener, if your significant other has turned into a drawer knob, there are resources out there that can help you.
I mean,
we're not one of them.
We can't even say fully a drawer knob because she may be potentially other pieces of furniture.
Josie, I see your drawer knob.
Yo, gods, through the painting, it's
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah.
And Cooper's hand, again, begins to shake, possibly out of that love and emotion he is feeling. We get to see some actual conversation between Coops and Ann's over at the Double R.
Stop giving them nicknames.
I'm going to give them all the nicknames in the world. And in this conversation, we have Cooper encouraging Annie to dive into the whole world out there. He quotes the Christian traditional philosopher St. Augustine of Hippo. Hear the other side, see the other side, which she's immediately able to identify as a good former nun. Annie then can tell that something is troubling Cooper. She's able to read those sort of emotions on him and asks if he wants to talk about it, the same way that she seems to always want to make permission and consent to the side before she breaches into potentially troubling waters. He does obviously want to talk about it because he admits then that he should be thinking of the investigation he's in, but he finds himself just thinking about her, about Annie. She says she can relate because she sees Cooper's face in fried eggs, which, I don't know, have you ever ate fried eggs that look like someone's face?
Probably Cooper's, but
Does Cooper have a face that particularly is like a fried egg?
He's always got a sunny side up.
Good one. That's a good one. I, as a purveyor of jokes myself, I can appreciate a good one.
Thank you.
We have a good one here, not in the form of a joke, but in terms of editing and directing styles. I'm a huge fan of the slow zoom away from the conversation as it ensues. And we have that mounting ambience.
Boom, boom, doom, gloom, boom, shoom. Yeah, that's a little thing as they're talking about very kindly and happy things while the music is over. And
and that's what I like.
Everything.
I like how it builds. It takes a while to get there. I like how the slow zooming is obviously perceptible, but not dramatic. It's not like abrupt cuts here. And none of the conversation they're having necessarily is directly ominous itself. So it's almost being recontextualized by the camera work and by the effects of the television. That's kind of one of the nice things about the medium, right? If you were doing like a stage play, you couldn't exactly do that. You could have like music in the background, but it's using the camera.
The audience backwards, full stage, a little bit back. Be like, oh, what the hell?
I don't know. I just like it when they use the cinematic tools in their repertoire. That they use the abilities they have to create some interesting, enjoyable, ominous vibes.
Look, I'm not going to give you any money for your $10 word, so you can go ahead and stuff it back in your thesaurus. Okay, buddy? Okay.
You're just jealous that Dick Tremaine and I are smarter than you.
For the one person you could have sided with, I was half expecting Ben Horn, but truly, Dick Tremaine, okay, I'll accept that.
I am not
to make myself
as
feel
mighty.
bad.
I am not as mighty as Ben Horn. I am on a good day a Dick Tremaine in terms of my vocabulary.
Impressive.
Annie says that she has faith in Cooper, in them together, as she understands things. Soon after that, we have another quote, this time not from St. Augustine, but from Heisenberg. It is a quote that says, "What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning." My interpretation of that quote being, of course, that we don't directly observe the world around us, according to this philosophy, but rather, because of our human perception, we can only view the world through our perspective and our lens.
Okay.
Right? Heisenberg, quantum physicist. He is known for what is called the uncertainty principle. which I took the definition online because I don't claim to understand this stuff myself. But it's the more precisely the position of some particle is determined, the less precisely its momentum can be predicted from initial conditions, and vice versa. So that sort of weird, almost contradicting uncertainty principle that the closer you get to something, the less you can necessarily understand it and predict it. That's interesting. Very interesting to bring up that person. And they both were very excited when Cooper realized it was Heisenberg as a quote. So that felt very purposeful. Augustine is obviously very purposeful in the sense of the Catholic tradition, the tradition of the sort of nuns and culture that Annie has returned from, and sort of that spiritual faith-based belief. But now we've matched a quote from someone of the past with faith to someone of more recent time in the 1900s with quantum physicist, science-y stuff. And the idea here being, again, that, you know, the Augustine quote is that we need to see and hear this other world, whereas Heisenberg calls into doubt whether we can even see and hear our own world directly. I really enjoy the use of the Heisenberg quote here, sort of talking about the potential failures of perception. It goes back again to the Log Lady intro that all around us are clues, but how do we interpret the simple things like the taste of a strawberry? Only through our own lens, I guess one could say. Annie then suggests they go bowling, which Cooper suggests no. They go dancing.
It's not even like no, he deflects it into dancing, which I wonder what's our dark past of bowling will we never see Cooper?
I think it's a little eye-opening a little bit to Cooper's potential flaws if we take it too seriously, that Annie suggests they go do something and he immediately just is like, let's go dancing instead. He doesn't even really consider her idea. He doesn't really weigh it out. It seems like he's a little more in control in that relationship.
Well, couldn't you say that bowling is just dancing adjacent? You move your arms and your legs in a pattern.
I understand your attempts here to defend Cooper, but he was the one who brought up the idea of going on the nature observatory on the river. He was the one now who countered the bowling with the option of dancing. It seems like, I don't know, maybe Annie should get to pick the next thing. Maybe she should get to choose.
Annie gets to choose when she's the main character of the story.
Okay. All right.
Jokes aside, it is a little bit concerning as far as that goes, especially with where the dancing could potentially lead to.
Speaking of very concerning.
Yes.
My favorite moment in the whole episode.
Yes.
Because you can predict this about me by this point, Professor, I think. Syrup. I love the syrup.
Oh, you
big
love
fan
syrup.
of the syrup.
You're a big fan of the syrup. And it's not just because of the taste of syrup alone,
is it?
Sound. The sound.
It's the visual texture of the globules.
The drips and the clear stock sound of dishes breaking. Yes.
I enjoy the element of something that is foreboding or ominous, but not in a conventional sort of way. It's not like it's zooming in on a creepy porcelain doll or something that belongs in a hole that should be buried underneath the earth.
Or it's zooming out to doom and gloom music inside the background.
No, I don't mind that. Again, it's the idea of something that normally would not be unsettling, but is being recast. Even the cream corn way back from the Magician Boy. Something that's cream corn. Why is that a thing that's associated with magic right now? I like that feeling of everyday things being taken in a weird way. That somehow the dropping of blobs of syrup is in some way horrifying. There's some kind of darkness in the syrup. I don't know what that means, but I like it.
I think that the darkness is the overall sugar caramelizing inside of the maple content, from maple trees. I think that's where the darkness comes from, Kalil.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I don't want to
welcome.
I don't want to think this too far. I mean, you could say trees are a thing in Twin Peaks, and syrup is like the blood of the tree. And I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. I have a right.
And do you know a region where maple syrup production is very popular?
Canada?
Canada. But in the general maple syrup production region, one of the states that's included is West Virginia.
Wow.
Where Donna was born. Could there be a link?
Donna is the maple syrup of Twin Peaks.
She could be the maple syrup of Twin Peaks. And
the crashed plates are her father and
actually,
her not father?
Actually, it is a question. Maybe this is getting a little bit too far, but it is a question that we're talking about Miss Twin Peaks, okay?
Yeah.
Miss Twin Peaks is coming up.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of love-based resolutions with Shelley Johnson and Bobby. Little love resolutions with probably Audrey getting too late to Twin Peaks with things with Jack, if you will. So she likely won't be able to help out her dear old dad with that. Donna hasn't gotten it. Ooh. She's connected to the maple syrup that now drips.
Spicy!
So who
Spicy
knows?
syrup!
So who knows? Like, I have a very strong feeling, and again, we're talking more about Annie. I have a strong feeling that we're aiming towards Annie, but at the same time, Donna and her maple syrup still means she is a contender.
The crosshairs remain in twain.
But yes, proceeding through the maple syrup as it drips down onto the plate.
You know what maple syrup, if I had to describe it in one word, you know what I would say? Smooth. You know what else is smooth? The jazz music at Miss Twin Peaks pageant as they set up
20th anniversary.
The 20th anniversary. That's what I said. That was the correct wording. Celebration. Smooth as syrup. Cooper extends a hand out to Annie at the bar. He is wearing his more formal black suit, open, with a white or maybe it's light blue, depending on the lighting, button up underneath. Cooper then teaches her how to dance again. It is Cooper in the lead, Annie receiving the information. She says, however, because she's a natural learner, that it's genetic memory. Again, we're having that nurture versus nature debate, Professor. It's genetic memory. She says since her mom and dad would dance the Lindy.
Could you describe the Lindy?
You know the Hindenburg disaster?
Yeah.
The opposite.
Oh.
And so Cooper then says, listen, if I'm being too forward, and then at that point, Annie takes the momentum of the situation. She leans in for the smooch. She lands as the smooch. And then she says she wants more than the smooch.
There's a Twin Peaks pattern of damnation is missing.
I understand why you hesitate, why you treat me with care. The convent invokes images, the thought of helpless women, fearful of the thought of any emotion other than those derived from scripture and prayer.
And
but when you hold me, when we kiss, I feel safe and eager. I'm not afraid of anything you make me want or feel.
Man, I'm surprised that Cartoon Mouse ran onto the stage and took Annie's place in the middle of that after Dougie Milford came up, you know?
And then Cooper's like, I'm beginning to tire of these interruptions because the old man mayor's mic squeaking.
Why did Cooper switch with Ed?
And Annie says, I don't know, I think he's cute. That's a good moment. I like the moment where she calls the mayor cute because mayor is cute.
Kalil, I don't know where you got these little like Agent Cooper and Annie dolls with you, but you got to stop like moving them across this. So this is very distracting for a podcast.
Dwayne's mic starts then lowering, and he's like lowering with his mic. That was a good moment. Good funny moment. I sometimes forget that Dwayne is the mayor. Like this sad situation he's in.
He is. I feel like there's just this camaraderie found in Twin Peaks where people have a lot of loyalty to certain people. And usually it's A-okay with people like the Catherine side and the Ben Horn side because it seems that Dwayne's pretty incompetent so they can get away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I almost wonder if maybe that's part of the reason why Twin Peaks is a den of horrifying crime and corruption all throughout. No, I mean, at least Dwayne's corruption is fairly benign.
Yeah, he just walks up to people with guns and saying, I'm going to murder them.
But everyone's like, oh, it's Dwayne. It's not a big deal. Just leave him alone with the woman. It'll be fine.
Just put the man with the gun who's ready to kill a woman with the woman in the room, close the door and let him sort it out.
Speaking of clear warning signs and things you should not allow to happen, Annie says, this is like a fairy tale. Cooper says, and you're the queen. Area goes dark. Giant is on the stage, waving his arms slowly.
And this is why he's like mouthing no as he's waving his arms back and forth is where it is very, very, very heavy-handed that this is going to go down a bad path. If I've ever seen anything alluded to. If there was like a neon sign that said no Cooper no, that would be well in place with all of these put together in the same episode.
I also love how right after that incredibly obvious warning sign, the mayor's messing with the mic and says, this isn't right. There's something wrong here. And it's like very on the nose dialogue. I know he means the microphone, but that totally could also apply to the other situation going on here.
It fades out to the Roadhouse bar, the good old bang bang there and just like the different roads, and it still carries his dialogue on. So things aren't going so well in Twin Peaks.
I love that when we do eventually fading back to Annie, we get like all these different scenes from events that happen throughout the episodes that create that sort of atmosphere around. We get the red stoplight. Haven't seen that in ages. We get the Double R Diner outside at night. We go into the hallway of the school. That's also been a while since we've had that. The hallway of the Great Northern, I believe it's the hallway that leads to Cooper's room. The sheriff's department. And again, all these areas are gone. There's no people. They're alone. There's just nothing there, which I think creates that mood. If Cappy was randomly seen in the sheriff department, picking his nose, that would really destroy the atmosphere over here. It goes to the cave painting on the blackboard, then to the swaying of the tweez in the wind.
Tweez.
One of my favorite.
Oh, the tweez.
A dark circle surrounded by white in a clearing of the forest.
Yep, nearby a circle of trees, because we hadn't seen that before inside of a map.
A light shows up, cast kind of in like a spotlight fashion in the background, and we get a certain hand in a certain denim light blue jacket sleeve, immediately recognizable to us. The hand is contorting with the same sort of background shrieky psycho music noises that we had earlier from the handshakes, although I have a feeling Bob is less summoned by love. Or if it is summoned by love, it's the way that someone is summoned by the sound of the dinner bell and the smell of the pancakes. Love pancakes. They're heart-shaped. They're heart-shaped pancakes. That's what I'm going to get at. They're also banana pancakes because those are delish. And Bob manifests fully, retracts his hand.
He stands almost in like a regal position, like you'd see like General Washington on the end of the boat.
And I think the most fascinating part, we see him mouth something silent. He's like muttering very, very rapidly. Like it's almost like sped up video. We can't hear what he's saying, though. And then there's the water in the circle of that area reflects the red curtains of the red room, and the red room music is playing. So what did you overall think of that ending montage of visuals plus the Bob appearance and the red room reflection?
Well, we do see the red room inside the reflection of it. I think that whatever curtains we have between this mortal realm and the other, it has thinned out and has opened up a little bit as Bob has been able to come out again, because he says that he will come back, remember? He promised a little return trip to Twin Peaks. Though I'm unsure if he is going to be taking host. I don't know if like this full visual is something that means that Bob is something tangible in our world, or if there's going to just be a presence of Bob as he searches again for a new host. It's very fancy, but we have kind of alluded to potentially things not being what they seem. These owls may also be connected to the giant and the man from another place. This might lend credence to that a little bit more. And it's also just a really good spooky visual.
I like it.
It is a fun time.
It's a close second for me after the syrup.
Not fun for anyone else involved with Bob, though.
Bob is always here to have a good time, though.
Bob is here for a good time, but not for us.
We already mentioned earlier Dwayne Milford. There's not really much to say here, but we do have some things for the notes here. We've learned the real three judges are Dwayne Milford, Norma Jennings, and Richard Tremaine. Previously, we had misunderstood the situation, which is okay for the professor because it's all new to him. I just forgot.
You forgot that Richard Tremaine, the great Dick Tremaine, wasn't one involved.
I mean, it's only natural that someone of his taste and caliber would be able to put his skills to the use and benefit of the public by being part of the judging committee.
All I'm saying is that we've got Norma, who'd be biased probably to Shelley, and we've got Dwayne Milford, who is going to be a little bit biased towards good old Lana.
Richard Tremaine is just biased toward women. So that's the thing about Richard Tremaine. He is an equal opportunity.
Right, because we are going to have a Miss Twin Peaks contest in which a woman will be able to continue forth into the next round or final round. How does Miss Twin Peaks even work? I'm sure we'll figure it out as
Maybe.
things happen. No,
We got 2 episodes left.
it's going to burn down. There's fire. Walk down the runway with me.
And Dwayne is speaking adoringly of Lana's skirt, her dripping perfume, her brown eyes.
Yeah, no, he's saying that how he's going to get her in a room alone with Dick Tremaine, which says a lot.
Yeah.
And he's just like thinking about the situation. He's like, you're going to get a dress with a slit halfway to Seattle and brown eyes. And,
Vixen, why can't we just elope?
It's like, not until I win Miss Pim Peaks.
Then we'll get married after I win.
After she wins.
You're so strict, darling, but I'm the blasted mayor.
There's no hiding the fact that, like, there's not really any notable genuine bone inside of her body, as far as I can tell.
No genuine bones, only fake bones.
There's just fake bones. This is a fake
What
person.
are her fake bones made out of?
Deceit.
Just lies.
Lies.
Isn't that what the Thogi, the Dugpa cult, their name meant in Hindu is deceit?
I leave that up to you and your potential research to get wrong. And for any listeners who have noted anything that was incorrect inside those statements, to please email us at snakeeyedreams@gmail.com or tweet us at snakeeyedreams1, the numeral 1, because let's just face it, it's good that we get corrected on important information like beliefs.
Also, we are barreling toward the end of the series. We have very, very little time left. We're going to be watching the final episode very soon. And as we've requested before, and I wish to reiterate, we would love some questions. They can be geared toward the professor, our first-time listener, get his immediate thoughts on the second season and the whole series overall as it has ended. Or if you want to ask us both questions, or you want to ask me a question about Richard Tremaine, I would be happy to listen.
I mean, you can just ask questions to me all the time because I am clearly the most missed Twin Peaks out of the both of us. I would know exactly what answer to give in order to help the world in their problems, as Lucy tries to this episode, as we've seen many people with their speeches, including Shelley, try to. I'd just win. I'd walk up there, and Dwayne's heart would be swayed in a whole different direction.
But would you be able to figure out the puzzle box of the Packards?
No, because here's the thing. They give us a puzzle. They show us the puzzle, okay?
Yes.
And that has all sorts of, like, potential, like, solutions.
Yes.
And it looks like fun.
Yes.
And I'm going to get to why I'm frustrated at this. Because, like, the phases of the moon do seem to, like, be tied to a time. It looks like it is tied to certain months, if you will, from the various signs on there, which is great. That is fantastic. It's an interesting way to present a puzzle box. And as Catherine and Andrew Packard kind of come together to try to think of a few things, Andrew grabs a rolling pin with his hands to prepare himself, not for the first stage, because he just yanks away the box from Catherine and starts trying some codes. And he tries a few smart codes, like birthdays, significant dates that are between them, okay? Then he tries the day that they got the box, which, yes, as far as the story goes, means that they would have gotten a box anyway, or maybe Mr. Eckert may have even been convinced that he was going to die and this was going to be his last trip. We don't know that much yet. But what I do have to say is that since we don't have control on the dates or the concept of time in Twin Peaks, unfortunately, there's nothing for us to guess. You shove a puzzle box in our faces, and we can't even solve a little bit of it.
Maybe sometimes Twin Peaks has that problem where they give us the illusion of mystery, but then they don't actually follow through with it very well.
I want to solve things,
Maybe like
Cleo.
a certain hypothetical chess game that basically meant nothing to Wyndham Earl.
I just want to have lovely little things in which I can, conspiracy.
And I just want to smash those lovely things with a rolling pin.
Yeah, he gets to the second stage and he just goes straight for the rolling pin. Nutcracker not really inspects the box to see how it opens up next. No, that's the point you break it open.
Smash the world's shell.
And thankfully, it did not have a bomb. It had, in fact, a block of metal.
My favorite.
Your favorite. Yeah.
Build a house out of it in Minecraft.
It's probably precious, but I don't know enough about metals. I just know about diamonds.
Well, Pete isn't there to inspect it because he's having his own special day today.
Finding Josie in weird places.
Looking for Josie in all the wrong places.
Why is Pete Martell even at the Great Northern?
I don't 100% know. I think he was probably delivering something or picking something up, but he just spends the whole day on a wild, wacky adventure.
The lumberyard is burned down.
Yes.
Pete does not work at the post office. What would he
for
deliver?
the Ghostwood Project stuff? Maybe, I don't think they'd let him do much their business because I don't know what's happening. Anyway,
yeah, he's kind of even getting after Ben for that. So no, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in you.
Well, I do believe in Ben's health because Doc Hayward has given him pretty good clearance here. We get some shirtless Ben fan service for all you shirtless Ben fanatics.
He has no shirt.
And they talk about the physical health, but Doc Hayward is more concerned about what is inside Ben's heart.
Yep, because let's just face it, even though Ben is trying to convince Doc, saying no, I'm genuinely, whether you believe it or not, I'm trying to do a good thing right here, and I'm trying to get away from the lies, and Doc's just having none of it. It's damn it, Ben, when it comes down to it, your good is a ticking time bomb.
Yes,
I'm not the doctor.
I don't know what you're not the Dr. Hayward, that's for sure. I don't know what that voice is.
This is the sound before he revs up his chainsaw.
It says goodness in you is like a time bomb. There's nothing good about ruined lives. See, I don't even try to go for the voice because I know I can't do it. And what side are you on? Are you on Team Ben or are you on Team Doc Hayward?
Doc Hayward has a chainsaw for a hand, so I've got to side with him.
I'm on Team Ben then.
No.
I already was on Team Ben anyway.
You're always on Team Ben. Ben could say that I'm going off to a puppy mill to burn the puppies, and I'm pretty sure you'd still say, you know what, we can defend Ben somewhere here. No.
In this case, though, I do think Ben is right. I think that Donna is like 18 at this point, from what I can tell.
Okay.
She deserves to know who her biological father is.
Okay.
That shouldn't change that her real father is the one who raised her. The one that she's known as her father her whole life, Doc Hayward. But I think a child is owed certain truths and honesty. And I don't know what the right age to tell that kid is, but 18, that's certainly old enough.
But at the same time, we know that there is a darker past towards Ben Horne. Apparently, he can be locked away for multiple lifetimes. And as Doc Hayward says, like, things just aren't that simple. You can't just say that things will just work out this way because of one's simple affinity or idea of justice, John Justice Wheeler, if you will, or idea that truth can always be the good thing.
I am on the side that truth is almost always the good thing, and if it's not, I guess we need a more particular situation. I think this is a case where Donna is at the age where she can make her own decisions and respond however she wants, but I think that she deserves to have the right to know who her biological father is, to know where she to know where she comes from.
And so we're pretty much leaning heavily onto this, that it's very likely that Ben Horne
that very much seems
father.
To be the case. I don't think I'm saying anything spoiler here. It's pretty heavily implied that's where this is heading. And it's like,
I didn't get it because there weren't like deep, dark tones and sounds in the background. He didn't have anything with syrup dripping.
I think Donna should have been told much younger. But whatever. I mean, that I digress. She's an adult. That's a simple fact. You know, if I were secretly the child of someone else, I'd want to know. I think I have the right to know. So in very rare cases would I say that's not advised. It doesn't matter who her parents are. If her father is literally a dictator of some random country out in the middle of nowhere, some island country who like murders children and feeds their body parts to chihuahuas and then drowns the chihuahuas to make his music that he listens to, the screams of dying chihuahuas that ate people's body parts, she still deserves to know that that's her father.
And I hope that everyone is excited for My Dad's a Little Quirky coming to Fox this summer.
Or if the dictator's her mother, because women can also be dictators too.
We can let everyone equally, please don't murder puppies or don't murder. Can we take that away from this podcast? Can we take away don't murder?
Would John Justice Wheeler, what would he say? Because that's the one I'm going to follow. His name is Justice, literally.
He'd say, I'm Billy Zane.
Anyway, he was looking for Audrey because a partner has been murdered.
Yeah, I think that's fun to have this, like, weird subplot where, like, if the friend, it could have been, like, died, it could have been passed, it could have been, like, in the bed, but specifically murdered, and he's heading straight for that.
Yes. I'm convinced he's actually the same character that was in the Phantom late 90s film, also starring Billy Zane. I'm convinced that he is the Phantom.
This is the prequel to the Phantom.
He's about to go on his plane and go investigate this whole situation.
He's going to find those skulls. He's gonna...
We watched the movie, by the way.
Combine those skulls.
It was okay.
It's all about the fourth skull in your heart.
Would you agree that the Phantom is okay?
It's the fourth skull in my heart.
So Donna is holding something in her hands, but it's not a skull. It's a birth certificate. And it's really cryptically written and overwritten and rewritten.
In West Virginia.
The father's name is blank. Blankety blank blank.
Yeah.
We also have with that a photo book. There's this cursed photo of Ben with this thick mustache and bunny ears over Eileen and Will Hayward.
Can we also note that like there are pictures of Eileen Hayward,
yes,
Ben Horne, and what seems to be Doc Hayward all together in these nice little photos?
But I did just say that.
I get it, but we go back, you and I go back. We don't actually go back in the shot. But we look back, and guess what? Doc Hayward did not deliver good old Donna.
So Dr. Robinson.
Dr. Robinson in West Virginia did. And that's interesting.
Because he delivered Laura. I mean,
yeah, but which
Doc Hayward delivered Laura.
They're around, I would imagine, the same age.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether or not they were...
I wonder if it's a continuity error, to be completely honest.
It may be a continuity error. Maybe Eileen ran off for a time all the way to West Virginia. Maybe there was just a little trip and she happened to have a baby. In truth, there could be all sorts of fun scenarios. I think that there's just a lot of fun that could be placed forward with that. And even if not intentional, I imagine that that's also could say something about Doc Hayward.
I pulled up real quickly the Twin Peaks wiki again, just seeing if I can get some information about what's going on with her birth. And I won't get into spoilers, but I will say that it is rather confusing, even on the wiki. So it says that Donna was born September 2nd, 1971, to Dr. Will Hayward and his wife Eileen, although the father, of course, is left blank. It says that the birth was guided by Dr. R. Robinson. It doesn't say in the wiki, like, where. And then the next sentence, it talks about she and Laura. It doesn't imply, like, ever moving to Twin Peaks from Virginia. Mm-hmm. When I look at the residence section, it says resident of Twin Peaks starting in 1971. So what's strange here is that the wiki regards Dr. R. Robinson as the one to guide the birth.
Yes.
But the wiki doesn't seem to recognize West Virginia.
Fascinating.
Yeah, literally, if I Control F for Virginia, nope. That is not actually there.
Maybe Donna Hayward is the secret mystery in Twin Peaks that no one ever looks at. Maybe that is truly the layer of mystery that makes all mysteries truly mysterious.
Although I did actually accidentally find some interesting trivia that apparently the voice actress who did the dubbing for the French dub of Twin Peaks changed between season 1 and season 2 for Donna.
Huh.
And then also a third different Donna voice actress for the film.
Oh.
Fire Walk With Me. So there's 3 different ones for Donna's voice. The one for season 2 is Anne DeLuze, and the one for the film is Anne Rondelou, which feels like they're like the same person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anne DeLuze, Anne Rondelou.
There's layers to this character I didn't realize.
There are certainly layers to West Virginia that may or may not exist. And there's another cursed photo also where it's this off-camera person feeding cake on a stick to Eileen, while Big Stash Ben lingers happily in the background. I don't know, just some weird creepypasta potential with these images of Big Stash Ben.
You heard it, friends? Get on it. Let us make the creepypastas happen more. I imagine there's creepypastas out there through Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks is a creepypasta. The whole entire Evelyn arc is a creepypasta. Audrey, afraid her future will become a creepypasta if she does not find John Justice Wheeler. She returns to Benjamin Horne, who wants Audrey to be the Stop Ghostwood movement spokesperson, but she just wants to know where Jack is.
Where is Jack? No, listen, we can...
Where's he jacking off to?
Well, you see, we got this great opportunity with Miss Twin Peaks. We can really turn this around. We can work this out. Dad, where is John Justice Wheeler?
He's off to Brazil. He left a few minutes ago. And before Benjamin Horne can say, Audrey, do you want some pancakes? She's out the door. And Ben is left calling her name before he suddenly seems to perceive something. The music's in the background. He turns dramatically toward where the fireplace might be, maybe.
Yep.
And cut.
Like,
we don't know what he looked back at.
So there's really 2 options that I can think of.
The only 2 options are...
1, probably Donna. Probably Donna coming to be face-to-face with this man because
there's a back door. From, then?
There's a back door that, like...
There is.
That we've seen Hank enter through. So
Very
maybe
good memory.
She has gone through that as well. It's possible. Maybe she ran through the chimney. Maybe she walked through fire through there. I don't know.
Fire, walk with me.
Secondly, we could say time is weird in Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe Bob paid a little visit to one of the most corruptible people in town because this man is struggling between goodness and not goodness.
May I propose the third option?
It is Pete Martell. It's like, are you my Josie?
That's what I was going with this. What if Benjamin Horne sees a representation of Josie?
Oh.
Because Pete, at the cut right after this, right after Ben looks back dramatically with that music toward presumably the fireplace, and then it cuts directly down to a floor below at the lobby where Pete is looking at a different fireplace above the fireplace at a painting of abstract art and says, Josie, I see your face. And then Randy walks by. Randy, whoo! But it is possible they're both seeing images of Josie, one in the fire and one in the painting above the fire.
Josie is just art now. Josie is the knob on your drawer pull. She is the abstract art above your fireplace. She is just your whole entire wall of your office. She is all-encompassing, all-being.
What do you think is going on here where Pete says, Josie, I see your face? Do you think it's meant to be taken like literally there's the spirit of Josie in that painting? Or is it more that like Pete is a weirdo who sees like faces out of abstract art, and he's just like, this kind of looks like Josie.
So we've seen a poetic, theoretical side of Pete in different ways.
He likes the king and I.
He loves the king and I. He tends to have this very aloofness to himself. So to say that he may be poetic to something of art and calls up to it could be something. It could also be Pete's not doing okay after everything that happened with Josie, and we are getting a chance to explore it, but unfortunately, this man may need some help. Dr. Jacoby adjacent, but I will never prescribe Dr. Jacoby directly. There can also be a sense where maybe Josie's face is being seen in different places, and Pete may be more connected to the mystical than we first perceive.
Perhaps.
After all, like, we did see the drawer pull closer as Josie made a few reactions before horror 3D image PS2 face came out of the drawer pull.
I mean, also early PS3.
Or, either way, it is a 3D model of horror.
Yes. Before Pete can pontificate any more upon that painting, he is grabbed.
Yes.
By a certain Audrey Horne, who is needing very direly to interact with a certain John Justice Wheeler, and Pete has a car,
I've
quote,
got a pickup.
a truck.
A truck.
Runs like a dream.
Runs.
And Pete grabs his hat, waves goodbye to the painting, which is adorable, and then is taken away on his adventure further to the John Justice Wheeler jet, where
shorten it. It is the Justice Jet.
the Justice jet.
We do not need that much
with the
alliteration.
John Justice Wheelers on the jet that get it off the ground.
It takes the wheels, the John wheels, to get the Justice Jet off the ground. We got it.
Yes. And Audrey and John Justice Wheeler are confessing their love to one another. Audrey says that she is a virgin and she wants them to make love to her here and now. And she says, "It's your jet." And he's like, "Thank God for that."
I'm glad that she did run into the correct John Justice Wheeler, because I know you and I contended on the shots on whether or not the stand-in who actually probably has the license to drive the jet, as opposed to
Billy Zane,
who smiles inside the cockpit.
Again, John Justice Wheeler, either way, it's the Phantom. I'm convinced it's the Phantom. Yep. So as Audrey is making love to the one and only Phantom, I believe he's actually, I prefer to think in my mind he's putting on the pink outfit. I like to believe that was definitely part of the act.
Pink outfit?
Wasn't it pink? Was it purple?
I didn't remember what he was wearing, but when you say pink outfit, I think
the
of
Phantom.
Oh, no, that was purple.
Was it purple?
That's purple.
Okay. Putting on the purple outfit, the purple suit for the act.
I mean, it did go from night to day.
It's true.
As far as time went. So.
And Pete Martell, he sniffs, he dabs his eyes, his hand starts to shake as he's feeling the emotion. Later, we see Pete has fallen asleep in his car and is woken up finally by the jet taking off. At first, he's confused, is Audrey on the jet or not? But Audrey walks up to him teary-eyed, sad that the man of her dreams has left. Pete is confident, though, that he'll be back one day since he promised. Audrey, however, is morose. Love stinks, she says. But Pete realizes something in the air. He recognizes this is the chance for him to take someone fishing. He tells Audrey that one of the best ways, one of the best cures for a broken heart is to go fishing. Quote, "Nothing quite like the trout's leap in the moonlight." And, of course, always the gentleman. "May I?" He extends his arm. Audrey laughs. "You may." And they go together, and they say to this day they are still fishing in our hearts and in our dreams.
I fear the point where, like, they catch a fish and he looks close to the fish. He's like, "Josie."
I see a percolator.
In your heart.
Speaking of lovey-dovey moments of perfect union, Shelley and Bobby at the Double R. It seems like Bobby has finally come around a little bit to the situation that's been brewing for the past season.
And seems like something's in the pie, probably cocaine, but oh well.
Okay.
Yeah, the lady's shaking as they're having the conversation.
Okay. I understand. It's also listed as unknown performer, by the way. We don't have a name for that character or actress.
That's sad.
Yeah. So Bobby is going over Shelley's speech with her that I think Bobby wrote or had a very large hand in writing. And he's kind of questioning some of his own word choice there. When he admits that he's been doing a lot of thinking and he hasn't given the right kind of attention to Shelley. He started wearing all these suits and acting like he was more important than anyone else. Shelley pretty quickly is like, "Yeah, you're pretty crummy." But she says that she's missed him. Some of the things they used to do together. Bobby says that when he saw her kissing that guy, obviously Gordon Cole in reference, something snapped. His brain rolled over. He could see all the stuff that was happening to him. And he says that he loves her and he wants to spend the rest of his time with that, if that's okay with her. And then, lucky me, the music swells in the background, and it seems like Bobby and Shelley are back.
It seems like too fast of a resolution, but yeah, it's back. And like I've said, Kalil, I just hate love.
I can tell.
I hate love.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think that everyone's just more interesting when they're not in love.
Do you hate all kinds of love or only romantic love?
Just love, Like,
no, I'm gonna call you. I'm like, which kinds of love? I'm gonna take you seriously for a moment.
Okay,
for once in my entire life, I'm gonna take you seriously.
If we're actually taking ourselves seriously here, of course, everyone wants to make sure that their characters are very happy and that they go on to have a great time. But on the same token, I haven't really seen that much of a relationship that I haven't at least had a modicum of concern for.
With Twin Peaks or in general in any fandom?
In Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks?
I feel that there are ways that love can tell. But then again, I'm the one who usually tries to seek out the love that sort of settles in.
What about Ed and Norma?
Ed and Norma is only... It is on a tightrope at the moment, just because, yes, it's good that they get to see each other again, but for one, not only is there the complication with the whole Hank thing, that, yeah, likely Hank will be going away, but there's also the complication of everything that happened with Nadine. They, at the very least, their journey into their fondness has spanned years, and I do believe it has spanned years, and they have been working towards one another. It's just going to be really dependent on where Nadine ends up and where Hank ends up, that my fondness will either grow or wane. So yeah, no, they're like the closest.
I think to a lot of Twin Peaks fans, they're the most wholesome couple in the original show.
Yeah,
to really root for. I'm not a huge fan of Norma and Ed's relationship, which puts me on the outside of things. I don't dislike their characters or the relationship itself, but I never really found it that interesting or that compelling, which are reasons we'll get to later at some point, maybe.
Yeah, I think that out of the relationships, it's the most complex and layered, as opposed towards so far.
I disagree with that. Complex and layered in which sense? I think it has a lot of history behind it, but I think the emotions behind it are very simple and straightforward.
I think that it's the way that everything proceeded, the story of their fondness and their love for one another, the way that Norma reminisces on the complicated feelings of...
It's been a very winding path.
Yes, a very winding path on how, like, Norma is just saying, like, I should have came through that door. I should have given you the gift. I should have been honest, but I couldn't. I just stood there. And when Ed is trying to work through his emotions in the hospital bed with speaking to Norma before also having a chance to speak with Nadine, there's some powerful and conflicting moments with this relationship that I don't believe is just straightforward. I think that winding is definitely a good word for it. And it's the fact that we had to work through this relationship almost through all of Twin Peaks, as opposed to, again, like the snippets that we get for someone like James and Donna, in which every little bit of it seems to be like the same thing on repeat, and everything around them is just more interesting. When it comes to Cooper, he just met Annie a few episodes ago, and there's like a very pushed sense of fondness, I feel. Not to mention the same thing kind of with Audrey, with Jack, and yeah.
It's a very sudden infatuation.
Yeah, no, I think that's why Ed and Norma's probably works the best for me, but at the same time, the complications definitely muddy the water a little.
How are Lucy and Andy doing?
Lucy and Andy, if it wasn't for just sort of the way that their characters behave at times, just because usually it seems to be at the butt end of a joke, I could probably give some more information on that. But at the very least, there is a little bit more loyalty and innocence that Andy is giving off to Lucy that I can appreciate to a point.
Well, tomorrow's D-Day, Dad Day. Lucy's going to decide in 24 hours who will be the father of her child. And that she could use the money from winning Miss Twin Peaks. So she's going to enter. And Andy's kind of helping her write this speech to help save the planet.
And where the heck has Dick Tremaine been? Absolutely absent. I don't think that we've gotten that much like Dick Tremaine content or even dealing with Lucy after the events of, the baby.
Do you give Dick Tremaine a better chance for D-Day, Dad Day, or do you give Lucy a better chance of winning Miss Twin Peaks?
I think that it's going to be more likely Lucy inside that, but I don't want Lucy and a baby to die that day because of... you-know-who.
I think Wyndham Earl would just
So-
say it's a 2-for-1 special.
Weirdly enough, I'd rather have Dick Tremaine be the victor, but I do think it's more likely that...
Dick Tremaine is declared the winner of Miss Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Hey, how about we go with that? I like that
Yeah.
option. Can we go for that? It's like, okay,
I never saw this coming. I guess everyone realized I am the most dashing after
He's
all.
one of the judges. It's like, and it looks like the victor for Miss Twin Peaks. It's me! Isn't this a wonderful surprise?
The first Mr. Twin Peaks. Marvelous. Immediately dragged away. I just got this suit.
No, and Little Nicky's absolutely disappeared.
Yeah, Little Nicky's gone.
Little Nicky went to
That is
the
a dropped
pit.
plot point right now.
Little Nicky went to the pit. He rules over the pit in the middle of Twin Peaks because
think-
he is
yeah.
actually the devil.
I think it's really weird how just unceremoniously the plotline got dropped, so we don't even have a offhand remark about what happened to Little Nicky.
And by hand, that also drops Dick Tremaine because let's face it, that
I'm
was
glad he
one
came
thing
back in
was
some
working on
way.
that.
I'm glad they didn't just totally drop Dick Tremaine. He got repurposed. And I know you're not a huge fan of Dick Tremaine. You like to meme on him and joke about him.
Yeah.
But can you really tell me, honestly, I really enjoy his involvement in the Twin Peaks pageant. I like that he's involved in the wine tasting and all the fashion shows. Do you like him being used, or do you wish he hadn't been coming back?
If we had to put a character, at the very least, people do enjoy a sense of charisma from people. People enjoy watching a heel in which that they can boo and rant against, and I'm okay in that camp as long as that is the accepted realm of Dick Tremaine. It is those who root on the side of Dick Tremaine and commend him for his actions and name rhymes with Mamil that I tend to have problems.
It's fun to root for a heel now and then. It is.
Good for you. This man is
Scar did
something.
nothing wrong on The Lion King. Anyway, so are you ready for the wonderful and strange question of the week?
I am ready for the wonderful and strange question for the week, but I will see whether or not I have an answer for that.
So very simple, straightforward question for you, Professor. Is love enough?
No.
Why not?
If you ever have a reliancy on one singular element on any level or scale, it will one day not be enough. You cannot push yourself to one sense of power, one sense of ability, one sense of talent, because one day you're going to need something else. And from what I've already explained, sometimes love just doesn't work out in the end. Sometimes these characters have to go through a few struggles and a few points for them to open their own eyes and go on their own journeys. And perhaps that does lead to self-love, but that also has a sense of turmoil, a sense of wanting and just working with the human experience or the inhuman experience for some. I can attribute to a few characters very likely with inhuman qualities.
Okay. Thank you, Professor.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, with that, we close the curtains as we ready ourselves for the Miss Twin Peaks pageant and damnation!
You're welcome.